Alright, guys, straight up and down. I'm not going to do anything about the music. I'm not going to talk about the music. I'm not going to mention anything about the music because, frankly, the music is irrelevant in this whole entire review. Um, to me, the soundtrack for that game has no bearing um, any more than the game itself, and I consider this game a huge turnoff, and it pretty much almost turned me off to the entire franchise, which has a rich history of tie-in games to the original series. Some okay, some not okay, but nevertheless, you get the picture that this is not going to be a very pleasant talk about, and not going to be a very long review either about a game that when I bought it, I was actually wondering why it was so cheap. And then when I played, it was actually I actually found out the hard way of why this was so cheap, and that is Resident Evil Survivor. Out of all Resident Evils I had played, one, two, three, this was the one that pissed me off the most. Um, Even after the other games that I had played later on, this was the one that got me angry. Um, and just to pretty much sums this up, because like I said, this game is not worth my time to actually dissect this game. All right, I'm keeping it real. All right, this is a game that is very simple, right to the point. You play as this guy who lost his memory. He doesn't know why he's at Raccoon City, and he is basically caught in the midst of the zombie invasion. You are playing not as the character, but pretty much as a first-person view. You're playing pretty much the old-fashioned shooter games that you normally see from great classic like Doom. Only this one is Resident Evil, and it has none of the intensity, none of the scare factors at all that I come to know and love from Resident Evil. This game was simply boring. The obstacles boring. The puzzles unimaginative. And basically, the only thing I can actually tell you that is actually memorable is they had posters from Dino Crisis that they was actually sneaky enough to try and promote. And boy, do I have a lot to say about Dino Crisis, but that's for another time. Um, it just was not a very influential game. I really did not consider this to be a great game at all. And me playing Resident Evil was scared the hell out of me. Resident Evil 2, that scared the hell out of me even more. And Resident Evil 3, although the scare factor was so and so, it was still a good, entertaining, thrilling game that I loved playing through. And then you have this game, Survivor, which when I first heard about it, I stumbled upon it by accident because when I was living in Staten Island, I stumbled upon the game. It was in the shelf, and it was in the shelf for a very low price. And I'm like, oh, they did make another Resident Evil game, not knowing that it is not really part of the series, but more of a side situation towards the other Resident Evil games. I beat this game in less than 2.5 hours. I didn't put it in any easy mode. I just played the game, and I was already done. It took me how many hours to beat Resident Evil? It took me a good few days to beat Resident Evil. That's because I was frustrated with the puzzles. The game was very challenging, very fun, very entertaining. And after I beat the game of Resident Evil, I went back to play it again because I want to get the different endings. The same thing goes with 2. Despite the fact they actually had cheat mode built into the game, I didn't use it, and I still beat the game, but it took me a lot longer, and I had a hell of a good time. 3 um, was fun. It took me a little shorter than the first 2, but it's still I got my bang for my buck. I wanted to play it again. I even wanted to play the mercenary missions that they had from there. I really enjoyed 3. When I beat this game, I took the game, put the disc, make sure the disc was nice and neat, went back to the store and got a $6 discount. It cost me $21 to pay for that game. I got a $6 discount and I used it to purchase Gex, one of the Gex games that I actually wanted because I had lost it and I actually got it back. This is how bad that game was. And the guy was kind of surprised because I don't normally return games one day after I played it. So he knew I was not happy with this game. The last game I actually returned to him, and I kind of regretted it because it was one of those games I actually wanted for nostalgia reasons, was The Incredible Hulk. And the reason why it is that once I returned that game, somebody else bought it, and I found out that that game was discontinued. That's when I realized they discontinued games, even though the system is still in play. But I really, it was such a letdown that it actually stopped me from getting Code Veronica when it finally came on the PlayStation because it was actually for the Dreamcast and nobody really tried to promote it. But once um, that game came out for the PlayStation, Code Veronica, I just didn't want to get it because I was so angry. How can Capcom, who I really trusted with the Resident Evil franchise, do a complete 180 and give this crap? What were they were trying to do? Were they trying to extend on the series and make first-person shooter games based on the same series? It didn't make any sense. Plus, in my opinion, once they did The Last Escape or Resident Evil 3, to me, that spelled the end of Raccoon City. There was nothing left of Raccoon City. We already established what happened to Jill Valentine and what happened and what led to her leaving. So to me, it didn't really make any sense to go back on this setting because there's really nothing else to tell. To me, Survivor had gave me nothing of value, no purpose whatsoever for this story to exist, other than the cash in on the Resident Evil name. And to me, it was a terrible cash in, terrible. This game, I don't remember not one person saying anything good about this game. I don't remember out of all the Resident Evil games, not one positive thing came out of this one. One, and we have a lot of side games. We had, of course, the latest one being Operation Raccoon City. But at least with Operation Raccoon City, there is some positive. There's a lot of negative, of course, but there's still some positive about that game. There's none with Survivor. None. And that's largely because, besides the fact that it is a first-person shooter that nobody actually asked for, it just was a boring story. It really had nothing. And there was no scare factor whatsoever. I beat that game, I couldn't believe it was over. And once it was over, I kind of glad it was, because now I could return to the shop and say, give me something for it. I don't care what it is. And notice I didn't say nothing about the soundtrack, because there's really no soundtrack to be had. This is the weakest of the whole soundtrack series, to the point where I can't even discuss it. There's nothing to discuss here. But my God, this was a bad one. This was a bad one. Maybe you guys who played this before, maybe you guys have actually liked it better than I did. I really like to hear your opinion on it. I really like to hear what you got to have to say. I am curious. I really am. But to me, there's really nothing positive about this movie. It really isn't. But again, you guys may actually disagree. Please let me know if what you like about it. I am curious, because if you did like it, that's great. I'd like to know what you like about it. I'm not gonna argue. This is not. Don't argue with me about it, because I can't stand this game. Just don't tell me I'm being wrong, because I didn't have a good experience with this game. I really didn't. That's it for now. Leave your comments below if you guys have anything to say. Until then, J77 saying, take care, be safe, talk to you soon.